So now all we can do is wait perhaps for that next phone call from the man who calls himself Zodiac, who has killed 5 and says he's going to kill again.
The Zodiac Killer has always been the nightmare with a logo. A killer who did not just murder people, but seemed to market himself to California and the world. The crossed circle symbol, the taunting letters, the coded messages, and the foggy Bay Area crime scenes turned him into one of America's most famous unsolved mysteries. Then there's the Black Dahlia, the brutal 1947 murder of Elizabeth Short, a Hollywood horror story that has haunted LA for generations. Now, a new theory claims these two cases may not be separate at all, and that one man, Marvin Margolis, later known as Marvin Merrill, could sit at the center of both. Before we start, drop a comment below. Tell us what you think. Are we finally looking at the real Zodiac Killer, or is this another true crime theory that sounds too perfect to trust? Today, we're looking at the claim that the Zodiac Killer may have finally been identified after 57 years. The code.
How did you crack the code?
I got every male name and surname, not just in California, but across the nation. And we took that data set and we entered it.
You looked at 71 million names.
And then it went from there to a little over 7,000. And then from there, it went down to 184, and then to 35, then to 14, and then to 1.
The latest theory begins with the Zodiac's shortest and most frustrating cipher, the Z13. In 1970, the killer sent a message that began with "My name is," followed by 13 mysterious characters. For decades, that tiny puzzle drove people mad because it seemed to promise an answer while never quite giving one. Researcher Alex Baber claims he attacked the problem with artificial intelligence. He generated millions of possible names that could fit the 13-character structure, then started narrowing them through records, age, location, military history, and physical descriptions tied to the Zodiac case. Eventually, according to Baber, the search pointed to Marvin Merrill. That name matters because Marvin Merrill was an alias used by Marvin Margolis, a man who had already appeared in the orbit of another infamous case. The connection's not official. Police have not closed the Zodiac case, but the theory gets attention because it doesn't rely on one clue alone. It stacks code, biography, location, behavior, and a strange late-life drawing into one very uncomfortable picture. The name.
What does all this circumstantial evidence say to you?
Marvin Margolis is a Zodiac Killer and the Black Dahlia Avenger.
You're that sure?
Without sounding cocky or arrogant, I have to say, yes, I am undoubtedly sure that this is the right guy.
Marvin Margolis was not some random name pulled out of a hat. He'd been questioned after the murder of Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia. Short's killing in January 1947 became one of the most disturbing crimes in Los Angeles history. Margolis knew her. In fact, he later admitted he had lived with her briefly months before her death. At the time, he was a young World War II veteran and a pre-med student at USC. That medical angle has always raised eyebrows because Short's body was mutilated with a level of precision that suggested someone familiar with anatomy. After the Dahlia investigation, Margolis left California and changed his name. That move doesn't prove guilt, of course. People change names for all sorts of reasons. But in a case full of vanishing trails, false leads, and missed chances, it adds one more strange wrinkle. The theory argues that Marvin Merrill fits the Z13 cipher and links back to a man with a possible connection to Elizabeth Short. That's the hook. Once that name appears, the two cases begin to overlap in ways that are hard to ignore. The war.
He had a medical background. He was a USC medical student, and he was also a former Marine.
Margolis had served in the Navy Medical Corps during World War II and was reportedly exposed to horrific conditions during the Battle of Okinawa. He later showed signs of severe trauma, including nightmares, depression, and a hair-trigger response to threats. After the war, he hoped to become a surgeon. That dream never happened. Instead, his life became restless. He moved around, worked different jobs, exaggerated parts of his past, and seemed drawn to reinvention. Now, both the Zodiac and the Black Dahlia Killer seemed obsessed with control. The Dahlia murder shocked Los Angeles through brutality. The Zodiac murders shocked Northern California through performance. The letters, symbols, and ciphers were not just communication, they were a stage. In this theory, Margolis becomes a man who wanted recognition, felt denied what he deserved, and learned how powerful fear could be when the press gave it oxygen. It's a dark psychological portrait, but it's still only a theory unless evidence can carry it further. Elizabeth.
Her killer inserted a knife blade into her mouth and gave her a Glasgow smile, which unleashed a flow of blood in her mouth, and that's what killed her.
She was found completely naked. Her bottom half, the rest of her torso and her legs, naked, were placed near the torso, and they were in an obscene position. Her legs were spread.
Elizabeth Short was only 22 when she was killed. Over time, myth swallowed the real young woman. She became the Black Dahlia, a nickname that turned a struggling, vulnerable person into a symbol of Hollywood darkness. The Margolis theory leans heavily on his reported connection to her. He allegedly lied about how well he knew her, then later admitted more than he first revealed. That alone doesn't make him the killer, but it raises the obvious question of why he was not more fully pinned down at the time. Some investigators and writers have suggested Short may have rejected him or embarrassed him. That's speculation, but it fits the broader idea of a man who saw rejection as humiliation. The Dahlia case had plenty of suspects, and many theories still compete for attention. Still, Margolis remains interesting because he connects to Short before the murder, then later appears under a name that Baber says fits the Zodiac cipher. In true crime terms, that's not a smoking gun, but it's more than a campfire story. The drawing. One of the strangest pieces of the theory is a drawing Margolis made near the end of his life. It reportedly shows a woman named Elizabeth, with disturbing details that some interpret as references to Short's mutilation. Even stranger, researchers say the word Zodiac appears hidden in the shading. Supporters of the theory see this as a kind of private confession, a final breadcrumb left by a man who wanted to be found out after death. Skeptics are not convinced. Hidden words and artwork can be tricky. People can see patterns where none were intended, especially when they already know what they're looking for. That's why this theory remains controversial, even with support from some retired detectives and code experts. For now, the claim sits in that uncomfortable space between fascinating and unproven. It has enough detail to make people stop laughing at it, but not enough official confirmation to close the book. The Zodiac Killer may have finally been identified after 57 years, but the final verdict still belongs to evidence, records, and law enforcement.
The Black Dahlia case was basically a jealous boyfriend who wanted to kill his ex-girlfriend.
That is correct. You can tell by the wounds that were inflicted upon her that it was personal.
In 1943, he was still Marvin Margolis, a pre-med student who'd done field surgery in World War II, coming home with psychological issues. He and Elizabeth met on Hollywood Boulevard and began dating. A bayonet-style blade was used in one of the Zodiac slayings.
Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Marvin Margolis, also known as Marvin Merrill, is the strongest Zodiac suspect yet? Or do you think his theory connects too many dots that may not truly belong together? Let us know in the comment section below.